Hey guys, and welcome back. We're here. If you remember in the last video, we were having a little issue with our refresh button that we put in at the last second. And I said I would look into what the issue might be. I went through the documentation to see if there was any limitations or anything like that. So I found out two things. The way I found this out was, first I read the documentation, didn't find anything clear. I added this little counter variable, which is this integer in the weather. And so I said every time we make a request, just print out what number we're at and then just add 1 to it, just so I could see the difference. So it's obvious that every time we make a refresh, we make a request, so it does fall into this block. So what most likely that means is that the information is the same. So on their back end, the information gets updated, it seems like to me, every minute. So at one point at first I was just like spamming this button, and it's not until at least a minute passes. I think it's exactly every minute on their end it updates, and then you can get refreshed information. So if I kept doing that, eventually at like 8:50 and 55 seconds or whatever, we'd get a new request. So what looks like is happening, and the interesting is this, I think, is only going to be at 7 now. Okay, hold on, let's double check that. 8:50, 55. So yeah, it was exactly a minute after. I don't think this was up to date from when I first started, but anyways, it looked like to me, I clicked it at least 50 times and you saw it only counted for a few. So it looks like their information doesn't get updated, and either the iPhone cached the data and realized that it was the same, or it just keeps returning the same data. Either way, I think that for this to look right, because even with me knowing about how apps and stuff work, I wasn't exactly sure if it was working. First of all, this button doesn't appear to be pressed when you press it. So we should add like a refresh indicator to show that something's happening. And then also, it would be cool if we cleared this data until we got the new data and then just populated it one by one. So I guess we can do that really quick. And then I want to move on to the location stuff that I've been meaning to do forever. So let me just take out this counter stuff. Counter here. And then I would say we don't need that breakpoint anymore. So I'm going to go back to this view controller. And I could like either make it so I could have like a boolean here that says like clear and say like true or false, or I can make a separate function that says like clear UI. So right there I went back because, I mean, technically you don't, they're just naming conventions, you don't have to follow them all the time. But I generally like to name functions that I make with the first letter being capital and then camel case the rest of it. Doesn't have to be that way, but that's just my personal preference. So just to save time, I'm gonna do this. So I'm just gonna null this out. I don't know what we want as like our defaults. I guess the defaults will just show like, I guess this will be clear. I don't want it to be completely blank because I want you to have some kind of idea of, you know, that there was something there, especially if it's the first time. You might think it's still loading. And then for this icon, I guess we don't have to nullify this. It just, I don't want to nullify it. It's not going to change that often, you know, refresh to refresh. It'll refresh when it needs to. And then I think something that we could add also is called an activity indicator. If I'm not mistaken, it's called the activity indicator. Let me full screen this, pull this right tab out, and I think it's called either, I always search for, there you go. I always search for refresh indicator. That's just what I remember it as. This has very few settings. It has a few different colors and stuff you can do. I usually do large white, and when you do large white, you can set it to whatever color you want. For now, we'll just put it as black. And then I guess what I'd like to do is whenever we press this, I'd like to like swap these out. And these are two things that I always click. So I make it animate by default, meaning the thing's spinning by default. I know it's hidden. And then I'll hide it when I stop it. So that'll take care of it on its own. Now with the screen selected, if we hit the assistant editor, this time we got the right thing. So when you have a case like this where like they're on top of each other, which usually not going to be the case, you can hit this little extra tab to come out from the left, and you can control drag from here the same way you can do from the screen. So I'm gonna call this the refresh indicator. You can call it whatever you want. That's just how I, remember it the easiest. So then I guess when I say refresh weather, so by default it's gonna be spinning and it's gonna be visible. Then I'm gonna say update UI, and then I think what I want to do is say, it's a little weird, but I think it'll be okay. I'm gonna rename this real quick so I don't forget what it is. We have a IB action connection to the refresh button, which means we can like do something when it gets clicked, but we don't have a way of accessing anything about the button. So what I want to do here is I want to say refresh button that is hidden. So this is how you would hide something on your UI in iOS. I'm gonna say it's hidden, which I don't want to do in there. That's when it already comes back. So I want to say it there, and then refresh button that is hidden is true. So I want to say at first hide that button so they can't press it before the first thing comes in. Then I want to unhide it, and then here, let me do this actually in here. It makes more sense to do it once here because I'm gonna have to do it again. So whenever this gets called, refresh button should be hidden is false. It should show, and I can make a little comment, show refresh button. It's not a complete necessary comment, but it's a good habit to get into. So I'm gonna make some little extra comments. This is one of those things where like is hidden equals false. You might confuse it with like is visible equals true, whatever. So I'm just gonna write a comment, and then refresh indicator. Let's see what it is. Stop animating. Yeah. So since I made that check, I checked that box that said hide when. What is it called? Hide when stopped. Hides when stopped. Yeah. So when I stop animating, it'll just hide it on its own, and then anytime we hit the refresh weather button, we want to say and see right now I just noticed that this is like redundant code. This little block does the same thing as this. I want to call this right here, I want to say refresh button that is hidden goes true. Refresh, get this or start animating. So this is a little tricky, right? Because this is the way we're hiding refresh button. But on this indicator, if I do is animating, this says it's a Boolean value indicator whether activity is currently running this animation. So you might do the same thing. You might say is animating equals false, which I don't think it would work. And the right way to start or stop this is to write start or stop. Those are one of those things that you just gotta look at all the different operators that exist on each type and kind of trial and error it. That might be confusing, just side by side. I've never noticed that before till now. So I'm wondering if I comment this all out. By the way, to do that, to like comment a whole block, if you highlight it and you hit command and parentheses, it'll comment and uncomment code, which is really useful. In general, if you feel like you don't need code, I'd say comment it out first, make sure everything works, and then you can get rid of it as you need. So I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to try it with you since we were talking about this. So this wants a specific UI button. I don't know if I can send it a UI. Could I? I mean, I could send it the refresh button. It's a little weird. I don't know if it's gonna work. I want to find out. So we'll do that together since I keep saying, you know, that's the whole point. This is what we're doing. So let's just think about the logic. So first time you get in refresh weather, it hides the button and then it starts animating the refresh indicator. Gets the weather, and when you update it, it unhides the button and stops animating. Makes sense to me? Makes sense to me. Let's see if it works. Installing. Okay, so the refresh indicator worked. What I forgot to do though. I don't know if this is like spinning really fast and going away, or if it's not being called. One easier way to find out is if we actually use this function that I wrote, which I didn't do. So start animating, do this whole thing. Before we do any of this, let's just clear the UI. So clear UI. I forgot to throw that into the refresh weather function. So we did find out, for one, that this works. When we load it in, it called a function that's usually done by a button press. That happened to work because I had a reference to the button already. Generally, when you make like an action, I think it stays as like a optional of any type, so you can pass anything in there. But if you remember, when we connected up the button press to it, I specifically made a button. Anyways, that worked out. But if you left it as any, you could pass in like nil or whatever you wanted to it, and it would take it. It doesn't matter since we're not using this parameter. There you go. If you do notice though, which I just noticed on that last click, the refresh indicator is like down here, which is not a big deal since they're like flipping in and out. They're like not a big deal, but if you see we have a yellow exclamation mark here, that usually means you have a warning. Not an issue, but like something that you should look at. So this looks like it's Alamo Fire specific issues. One thing about CocoaPods, and I mean using APIs in general, is they have to stay relevant to the language that you're using currently. So if that Alamo Fire is written in Swift 3 and then Swift 4 comes out, I think Swift 4.1 came out now as of April 2nd, then you have to sometimes wait for the API to be updated, which happens on bigger ones pretty quickly, but on like small little APIs, it doesn't happen that quick. In this case, it's not a big deal, it's just a warning. I'm surprised I'm not getting a warning for this guy. So this should be giving me a warning. If you're paying attention, you might have realized, which I actually didn't, that I didn't say anything about this. I just dropped it in the middle. What I wanted to do is just center vertical, center horizontal. It'll stay right there. And if you see this little yellow line with the plus or minus, whatever one, that means it's going to move from where it currently is, so it wasn't centered. If you hit that refresh, then it'll center it. You'll see now it's dead center. Okay, that looks fine. Yeah, that works. That wasn't with it centered, but you know that it's working. What I want to do real quick is get rid of this red background because it's bugging me. Then I also want to just throw in like a little text bar in here so you can start putting in some locations. I just wrote the location. Text field. There you go, that's what we need. Drag it in. I'm going to center it. We're going to do this different this time. So I'm going to say I want about 20 from the left, 20 from the right, It's red, meaning that it only knows left, right, doesn't know top, bottom. Let's say 50 from the top. In this case, because it has a fixed height, which you can change, but it has a fixed height by default, you don't have to specify how far down it needs to go. You could, but you don't have to. I'm gonna make this big again. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna open Assistant Editor again. So this is kind of cool because we're using activity indicator view. We're going to use our first text entry in this app. So let's say location field or location entry. Conventions of naming are a little weird, but generally should be really clear. I don't think location entry is super clear. I didn't want it to be long, like location text field or whatever it is, so location entry should be fine. And then we can configure some more stuff about it. You can say like what font you want, how do you want it to be centered. Let's say let's center the text. You can enter in some like, looks like faded out text, enter a location. This should have filled in, but it did not. Maybe it will when we run it. And then you can say like specifically what kind of keyboard you want, but that should be fine. And then we'll also add one more button just to say when you're done. This time we'll do control press and hold, drop it on there, center horizontally, vertical spacing. There you go. Let's call this search. And then we can actually just invert this. How about that? I don't like where you can't actually see the background. So I'll make that like a Facebook type of blue or something like that. I'll make this white. I don't like when the edges are too tight. So let's say, give this an extra little bit of width. Just little things that I've gotten used to, accustomed to. And then, here, we'll do this here. Again, remember we need an action. We don't technically need this, but we're going to do it anyways. Say search pressed. Connect that. And then the first thing I would say we should do is check if this is empty. If location entry equals nothing, or actually I think there's a way of looking at that, is empty maybe? No, I guess not. Oh, that text, that is empty. There you go. So that would check if it is empty. What we can do at this front is add an exclamation mark to say if this is not true. This is saying that the text might not necessarily be there. I don't know why the text is optional. We know it's going to be there. Okay, that's there. If it's not empty, then we're going to do something with it where instead of using that the generic latitude longitude that we have, we're going to use that specific one. So let's actually look it up. Get lat long Swift iOS. Let's say a little bit more specific. Swift for iOS. Let's see what we got. How to get the current latitude and longitude using CL Location Manager. That sounds about right. Skip the question. Create instance CL Location Manager. You gotta get authorization to use their location. Check if it's allowed. Current location equals local. And you can get the latitude, longitude. So that's good. That's going to be to get the user's current location, which I guess we can do first. I like that better. And then maybe the next one we'll throw in the actual... Actually, let's do it in the order that we're doing right now. Zip code, lat long, look up, Swift, iOS. It's going to be like there's probably a Google API that lets you like put in a zip code and get back a latitude and longitude. Using the Google Geocoding API, try it on... Okay, so it looks like Google has an API for it. And looks like they can handle a lot of different countries and formats and stuff, so that's really good. There you go, Geocoding API. So this is the format. It's kind of like the weather one. googleapis.com/maps/API geocode/output format/parameters. You'll get a JSON response in return. And yeah, that's exactly what we need. You can specify language, bounds, region, components. You can throw in the whole address actually. And then at the end you add your key. And then this is what we'd get back. Address components, geometry, location, latitude, longitude. And it actually has a specification if it's a rooftop. That's interesting. Okay, so let's see if I don't already have an API key. I suspect that I do. Let me go get one. If I don't, I'll either block this out or just request a new one before I post this video. In general, you should be wary of API codes, API keys. That's the only way of identifying that you're making a request. So like on the weather API thing that we have, if somebody makes over 1,000 requests, then I'm going to pay for it. So if somebody uses my API key in their app and I don't know about it, then I'll just be getting, charge money while they use my API key. So either block it out if you make a video, keep it to yourself. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So this is my API key. Don't steal it. I'm just kidding. It's not going to be valid. Do whatever you want. But let's say, so we could simply just like do this, I don't know, in the view controller or inside weather or whatever, but I think it'd be best practice right now to just make a different class, a Swift file, call it location. Location.swift. I'm gonna use Alamo Fire to make the request, so I'm gonna need that. Alamo Fire. I'm also gonna need core location, which I'm not sure if it's included in Foundation, but I'm just gonna import it anyways. And then this is gonna be core class location. Yeah, that's all. I always forget in Swift when I make a new class if that's all I have to put in the thing. You can extend it and like inherit from their classes, but pretty much all we need is that currently. Just gonna throw this key in here so I don't lose it. Accidentally hit build. That's what I need to do. So that's our key. And then what we're gonna need to do is Okay, let's just do this example one now, just so we can see if it works or not. Let request equal this. And then we'll throw in our key here using that little syntax I showed you before. And then I'm just going to use this as a guide to say this. So this is what we're going to need. We need a closing brackets. Well, I'm going to say get current location from address. We'll add the parameter for that in a sec. I'll say the request is this request, and then this result of value. Still these two lines. In general, don't retype stuff. That's how you make mistakes. If it works already once, just like get it again, and you know, change what you gotta change, but like don't retype for any reason. Sometimes I just do because I kind of feel like typing, just like helps me keep concentrated, but in general you don't have to and you shouldn't. Undetermined string literal. What's the problem here? Can I use instance member string? Not sure what the problem there is. I want to click play and see if it cleans up. Can I use instance member key within proper initializer? Proper initializer given before self is available. I've seen this error before, but I don't remember it. Let's Google it. Can I use instance member? I've obviously had that issue before. It already came up. Pretty recent answer. This case is just using a lazy variable. Saying LUTs aren't available. Let's call them both lazy var, since I'm gonna have to use request after. See if that works fine. Okay, so let's print out this location dictionary, and then let's just call it from somewhere. Not from there. From here, say location equals location, and then location dot get location from address. Then we can just leave that and say nothing really. We don't need to do anything there yet. Let's click play. Let's see if we get anything printed out to the console. I think we should. We might not. I make mistakes all the time, but I'm willing to look stupid for the sake of this video. So hopefully one or two people learn something along the way. First of all, the app's kind of looking cooler now with a text bar and stuff. Sweet. We got back what we were expecting. I want to cut this video off real quick here, and the next one we'll start putting in our own address, throwing that in as our address here rather than this standard string, and then we'll also get the location from the phone, which is important, and I think that'll be most of the next video. If you're liking the videos so far, please subscribe, like this video. Encourages me to make more. I really appreciate it. I'll I'll see you in the next video. Keep it up. App's looking really cool. I'm pretty excited. We're almost done with it.